The silence of a child's room, a silence that screams louder than any explosion, is the most haunting echo of war. It is the void left behind when laughter ceases, when a small hand is no longer held, when a future, once bright with promise, vanishes into the brutal fog of conflict. In Ukraine, amidst the shattered cities and the endless fields of sorrow, thousands of these silences accumulate, each one a testament to a child lost, a family fractured, a world irrevocably altered. Imagine a mother's last embrace, a hurried whisper of "I love you" as sirens wail, the chaos of an evacuation bus, a moment of distraction, a sudden surge of fear, and then an empty space where a child once stood. This is not a nightmare. It is the daily reality for countless parents, their hearts now a battlefield of hope and despair, their lives consumed by an agonizing, relentless search. They comb through refugee camps, scroll through endless lists, cling to every rumor, every grainy photograph, praying for a miracle in a landscape scarred by tragedy. The war steals more than land and lives. It steals innocence. It steals futures. And in the most cruel twist of fate, it steals the very presence of children, leaving behind only questions and an unbearable aching absence. This is the story of those children, the secrets of their disappearance, and the unwavering human spirit that refuses to let them be forgotten. Chapter 1. The Unraveling of Innocence. The first tremor of war often arrives not with a bang, but with a whisper of fear, a subtle shift in the air that promises impending doom. For the children of Ukraine, that whisper quickly escalated into a roar, a cacophony of sirens, explosions, and the terrified cries of parents. Homes became battlegrounds, schools became shelters, and the simple act of playing outside transformed into a perilous gamble. When the tanks rolled in and the missiles rained down, families were faced with an impossible choice: stay and risk everything, or flee into the unknown, hoping to outrun the encroaching darkness. In the frantic scramble for safety, amidst the mass evacuations and the desperate journeys across borders, the unthinkable began to happen. Children, once tethered securely to their parent hands, became separated. A moment of panic in a crowded train station, a wrong turn in a chaotic refugee column, a sudden bombardment that scattered families in different directions. These were not isolated incidents, but a tragic, recurring pattern, a grim consequence of a conflict that showed no mercy, not even to the most vulnerable. The very fabric of childhood, woven with threads of security and predictability, was torn asunder. Playgrounds became silent monuments to what was lost. School bells ceased their cheerful ringing, replaced by the mournful wail of air raid sirens. The stories are heartbreakingly similar, yet each one carries its own unique weight of sorrow, a universe of grief contained within a single family's ordeal. There is the tale of Anya, a 7-year-old girl with hair the color of wheat fields in summer, who vanished from a bus during a desperate evacuation from Mariupol. Her mother, Olena, a woman whose hands once braided Anya's hair with such tenderness, is convinced she saw Anya's small, red backpack disappear into the throng of people, a flash of color swallowed by the gray chaos. When the bus reached its destination, a temporary haven that felt more like a prison of uncertainty, Anya was gone. Olena has spent every waking moment since searching, her voice hoarse from calling Anya's name, her eyes hollow from unshed tears, etched with the image of that fleeting red backpack. She carries a worn photograph, a smiling Anya with bright, curious eyes, a constant reminder of the life that was, and the life that might still be, a fragile beacon in her personal darkness. Then there is Maksym, a boy of 10, whose laughter was once as bright as the sunflowers in his grandmother's garden. He was separated from his grandparents during the relentless shelling of their village near Kharkiv. They believe he had run ahead with neighbors, seeking the relative safety of a distant cellar. The neighbors, in turn, believe he was with his grandparents, clinging to their hands in the desperate flight. In the ensuing chaos, a maelstrom of dust and fear, Maksym simply ceased to be in either place. His grandparents, now refugees themselves, their faces lined with sorrow and the harsh realities of displacement, cling to the hope that he found his way to safety, perhaps even across the border, to a land where the bombs do not fall. But the uncertainty is a relentless torment, a wound that refuses to heal, a constant ache in their aging hearts. They replay the moments, the last glimpse of his small figure, the last sound of his voice, searching for a sign, a clue, anything to bridge the chasm of his absence. These initial disappearances, often accidental, born of the sheer pandemonium of war, laid the groundwork for a deeper, more sinister pattern. As the conflict entrenched itself and territory shifted hands, the mechanisms of disappearance became more complex, more deliberate, and infinitely more chilling. The fog of war provides a perfect cover, a shroud under which unspeakable acts can occur, leaving behind only whispers and shadows where children once played. The sheer scale of displacement, millions fleeing their homes, created a vast, vulnerable population of fertile ground for exploitation and abduction. The world watched, often in horror, as the fabric of society unraveled, and the most innocent among us pay the highest price, their futures stolen, their very existence questioned. The initial chaos was merely the opening act for a tragedy that would unfold with chilling precision. Chapter 2: The Shadow of Deliberate Acts. As the initial wave of accidental separation subsided, replaced by a grim, grinding occupation, a more insidious pattern began to emerge. The disappearances of children were no longer solely the tragic byproduct of chaotic evacuations, but increasingly the result of deliberate actions. In territories seized by the aggressor, a systematic process began to unfold, one designed to erase identities, sever familial bonds, and ultimately to absorb a generation into a foreign culture. Reports began to surface, whispers at first, then documented testimonies of children being taken from orphanages, from hospitals, from temporary shelters, even directly from their families in occupied zones. These were not children lost in the fog of war, but children targeted, removed, and transported. The methods varied, but the intent seemed chillingly consistent: to remove Ukrainian children from their cultural context, from their families, and from their homeland. One particularly harrowing mechanism involved the so-called evacuation of children from state-run institutions. Orphanages, boarding schools, and children's homes in occupied regions were emptied. The official narrative often spoke of protecting these vulnerable children from the dangers of war, offering them safety and care. But the reality, as documented by human rights organizations, was far more sinister. These children were often moved across borders, sometimes thousands of kilometers away, into regions of the aggressor state. Their Ukrainian citizenship was often revoked or ignored, new documents issued, and their names sometimes even changed. Consider the case of the children from a large orphanage in Kherson. When the city was occupied, the staff, many of whom had dedicated their lives to these children, were suddenly faced with an impossible choice. They were ordered to hand over the children, told they would be taken to camps for their safety. Some staff resisted, hiding children, attempting to contact relatives. But under duress and with no means of protection, many children were eventually loaded onto buses, their small faces pressed against the windows, looking out at a world they were being forced to leave behind. These children, some with disabilities, some with no known family, became the easiest targets, their vulnerability exploited with ruthless efficiency. Another mechanism involved the separation of children from their parents at so-called filtration camps. As civilians fled occupied areas, they were often forced through these camps, where they underwent rigorous and often humiliating interrogations. During these processes, parents were sometimes detained or even forcibly conscripted, leaving their children alone. In other instances, children were deemed unsuitable for their parents, or their parents were accused of being disloyal, leading to the arbitrary separation of families. These children were then placed in temporary facilities, from which they could be moved further into the aggressor's territory, their chances of reunification dwindling with each passing day. The most disturbing aspect of these deliberate acts was the alleged practice of forced adoption. Once transported, and often after a period in re-education camps designed to instill a new national identity, some Ukrainian children were reportedly placed with families in the aggressor state. This practice is a profound violation of international law, specifically the Geneva Conventions, which explicitly prohibit the transfer of children from an occupied territory to the territory of the occupying power and consider forced adoption a war crime. It is an act that not only severs familial ties, but also attempts to erase a child's cultural heritage, their language, their very sense of belonging. These deliberate acts of disappearance, shrouded in secrecy and propaganda, represent a dark chapter in the ongoing conflict. They are not random occurrences, but part of a calculated strategy, a systematic effort to dismantle the future of a nation by targeting its most precious resource, its children. The scale of these operations, the number of children affected, paints a chilling picture of a war that extends far beyond the battlefield, into the very hearts and minds of the next generation. The world's response to these actions, or lack thereof, would define its moral standing in the face of such profound human rights abuses. Chapter 3: The Global Outcry and Legal Labyrinth. The growing evidence of deliberate disappearances of children being forcibly removed and transported could not remain hidden indefinitely. As the scale of the tragedy became clearer, a global outcry began to swell, demanding action, demanding accountability. International organizations, human rights groups, and concerned governments began to mobilize, facing a complex legal and logistical labyrinth. At the forefront of the response were organizations like UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, and UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. Their initial mandate was humanitarian aid and family reunification for children separated by the chaos of war. But they quickly found themselves confronting a far more sinister challenge: state-sponsored abduction and illegal transfers. Their efforts shifted to documenting cases, establishing hotlines for reporting missing children, and creating databases to track and match separated families. This work was painstaking, often dangerous, and frequently hampered by a lack of access to occupied territories and reliable information. The legal framework for addressing these atrocities is robust on paper. The Fourth Geneva Convention, specifically Article 49, prohibits individual or mass forcible transfers, as well as deportations of protected persons from occupied territory to the territory of the occupying power. Furthermore, the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court defines the unlawful deportation or transfer of a population as a war crime. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, ratified by nearly every nation, emphasizes the right of children to their identity, nationality, and family relations. These instruments provide a clear legal basis for condemnation and prosecution. However, the application of these laws in the context of an active conflict, where one state is accused of systematic violations, is fraught with difficulty. Accusations of war crimes were swiftly leveled against the aggressor state and its leadership. The International Criminal Court, ICC, issued arrest warrants, a significant step, but the practical challenges of enforcement remain immense. Without the cooperation of the accused state or the ability to physically apprehend those indicted, these warrants serve primarily as a powerful symbolic condemnation. Human rights organizations, such as Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, played a crucial role in gathering evidence and amplifying the voices of affected families. They meticulously documented testimonies, analyzed satellite imagery, and cross-reference reports to build a comprehensive picture of the scale and nature of the disappearances. Their reports became vital tools for advocacy, informing international bodies and pressuring governments to take stronger action. They highlighted not only the physical removal of children, but also the psychological and cultural damage inflicted by forced re-education and the suppression of Ukrainian identity. The challenge of repatriation became a central focus. Even when children were located, their return was far from guaranteed. It involved navigating complex legal battles, diplomatic negotiations, and often overcoming the resistance of adoptive families who may have been misled about the children's origins. The process was slow, emotionally draining, and often required the intervention of third-party states or international mediators. Each successful repatriation was a testament to immense perseverance, a small victory against overwhelming odds, but for every child returned, hundreds, perhaps thousands, remained in limbo. The global outcry, while significant, often struggled to translate into immediate, decisive action. The geopolitical complexities of the conflict, the fear of escalation, and the limitations of international enforcement mechanisms meant that the legal labyrinth often moved at a glacial pace, while families continued to suffer in agonizing uncertainty. The world was forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that even with clear laws and widespread condemnation, the protection of the most vulnerable in times of war remains a fragile and often elusive ideal. Chapter 4. The Agony of Absence, the Parent's Endless Search. The human cost of war is often measured in casualties, in shattered infrastructure, in economic ruin. But there is a deeper, more insidious toll, one that gnaws at the very soul of a nation, the psychological burden of uncertainty, the relentless torment of not knowing. For the parents of missing children in Ukraine, this burden is a living, breathing entity, a constant companion that overshadows every waking moment and invades every dream. Their lives become a perpetual loop of searching, a desperate quest for a ghost in a world of shadows. Imagine a mother like Katerina, whose son, Dmytro, disappeared from a temporary shelter in Bucha during the early days of the invasion. She remembers his last words, a simple "Mama, I'm hungry," before she left him for a moment to find food. When she returned, the small cot was empty, the space where her son had been, now a gaping void. Now, months later, perhaps even years, Katerina's life is a perpetual loop of searching. She carries Dmytro's small blue teddy bear, its fur matted from countless tears, a tangible link to a child who might be anywhere or nowhere. Her days are spent sifting through online forums, contacting aid organizations, visiting makeshift memorials. Each new lead a flicker of hope quickly extinguished, leaving behind only a deeper shadow of despair. The uncertainty is a slow poison, eroding her spirit, yet she cannot stop. To stop searching, she believes, would be to betray Dimitro, to accept a fate she refuses to acknowledge. Her heart, once full of a mother's boundless love, is now a battlefield of hope and despair, each day a new skirmish against the encroaching darkness. This relentless quest takes an unimaginable psychological toll. Parents report symptoms akin to post-traumatic stress disorder, chronic anxiety, depression, insomnia, and a pervasive sense of guilt. They replay the moments leading up to the disappearance, searching for a different choice they could have made, a different path they could have taken. The what-ifs become a cruel litany, echoing in the empty spaces of their homes and their hearts. They are caught in a liminal state, unable to grieve fully, because there is no body, no definitive end, only an agonizing, open-ended question mark. The absence is a physical weight, constant pressure on their chests, making every breath a conscious effort. For families who have lost one child and still have others, the challenge is compounded. How do you explain to a younger sibling why their brother or sister is gone without instilling a paralyzing fear? How do you maintain a semblance of normalcy when your own world has been ripped apart? The missing child becomes a ghost at the dinner table, a silent presence in every family photograph, a constant reminder of what was and what might never be again. The siblings of missing children often carry their own heavy burden, a mixture of confusion, sadness, and sometimes a misplaced sense of responsibility. They too are victims, their childhood stolen by the shadow of absence, their innocence replaced by a premature understanding of loss. The psychological impact extends beyond the immediate family. Communities are fractured, trust is eroded. The fear that any child could vanish at any moment permeates the collective consciousness. It creates a climate of suspicion and vulnerability, where neighbors eye each other with a new wariness, and the bonds that once held society together begin to fray. The trauma of missing children is not just an individual tragedy. It is a societal wound, a deep scar on the collective psyche of a nation enduring unimaginable suffering. The collective grief hangs heavy in the air, a palpable weight that permeates every interaction. Yet, amidst this profound despair, there are glimmers of extraordinary resilience. Parents form support groups, sharing information, offering solace, and transforming their individual grief into a collective force for advocacy. They learn to navigate complex legal systems, to speak to international bodies, to become accidental activists in their desperate fight for answers. Their love, a force more powerful than any weapon, fuels their unwavering determination. It is a testament to the indomitable human spirit that even in the face of such overwhelming loss, the capacity for hope, however fragile, endures. Their stories, their unwavering courage, their agonizing weight, are not just footnotes in the larger narrative of the war. They are the very heart of it, a poignant reminder that behind every statistic, every geopolitical maneuver, there are real people, real children, whose lives have been irrevocably altered and whose absence demands our attention, our empathy, and our unwavering commitment to finding them. Chapter 5, Love's Defiance, Bonds Forged in Fire. In the shadow of war, where everything seems to crumble, the human heart often finds its deepest strength and connection. For many, the search for a missing child becomes a crucible, testing the very foundations of their relationships. Yet it is often in this shared agony, this relentless pursuit of a lost future, that love reveals its most profound and defiant power. This is not the fleeting romance of fiction, but the enduring, visceral truth of human devotion, a bond that strengthens under the weight of unimaginable sorrow. Consider the story of Serhiy and Oksana. They met in Kiev years before the war, two young architects drawn together by a shared passion for art and a quiet, understated humor. Their love story was one of gentle understanding, built on long walks through the city's parks, through the golden light of autumn, and dreams of a future filled with light, with the laughter of children. When the war came, it shattered their world, but not their bond. They fled their home in the capital, seeking refuge in a small village near the front lines, hoping to protect their daughter, 5-year-old Sophia, a child with eyes that sparkled like the morning dew. One day, during a desperate attempt to reach a humanitarian corridor, a chaotic surge of humanity pushing towards an uncertain safety, Sophia was separated from them in the crush of people. Serhiy, a man of quiet strength, whose hands once sketched elegant designs, became a whirlwind of desperate action. His architectural precision now applied to mapping out every possible route Sophia might have taken, every shelter she might have reached. He spoke to every refugee, every aid worker, his voice hoarse, his eyes scanning every face. Oksana, once the more outwardly expressive, retreated into a profound silence, her grief a heavy cloak, but her gaze, when it met Serhiy's, held an unwavering resolve. Her hands, once delicate on a drafting table, now clutched Sophia's worn teddy bear, a silent prayer. Their shared sorrow, the gaping void left by Sophia's absence, became a crucible for their love. It was no longer about shared dreams of art and architecture, but a singular, burning purpose to find their daughter. In the quiet moments between frantic searches, in the cold, dark nights of their temporary shelter, they would hold each other, not with passion's fire, but with a deep, aching tenderness, a silent promise that they would face this impossible journey together. Their hands clasped, their hearts beating as one, fueled by the memory of Sophia's laughter and the enduring power of their bond. Their love, once a gentle flame, had become a defiant ember in the howling wind of war, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to be utterly extinguished. It was a love that understood unspoken fears, that offered strength without words, a silent pact to never give up. This profound connection is not unique to Serhiy and Oksana. It is mirrored in countless families across Ukraine, where spouses, siblings, and even distant relatives find themselves bound by a shared mission. A grandmother tirelessly searching for her orphaned grandchildren. A brother crossing borders to find his younger sister. These are not acts of fiction, but real-life sagas of devotion. These bonds, tested by the ultimate adversity, become stronger, more resilient. They are the invisible threads that hold a fractured society together, the quiet acts of heroism that rarely make headlines, but sustain the very soul of a nation. The presence of such unwavering love, amidst the devastation, serves as a powerful counter-narrative to the cruelty of war. It reminds us that even when humanity descends into its darkest depths, the capacity for profound connection, for self-sacrifice, for enduring love remains. These are the stories that must be told, not just for their emotional resonance, but for their truth, for their testament to the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to let their loved ones be forgotten. Their love is a beacon guiding them through the darkest nights, a promise that hope, however faint, will always remain. Chapter 6. Geopolitical chessboard, pawns of a larger game. The tragedy of missing children in Ukraine, while deeply personal for each family, is inextricably woven into the larger tapestry of geopolitical conflict. It is a stark reminder that war is not merely a clash of armies or a struggle for territory, but a brutal instrument that shatters the most fundamental structures of human society and preys upon its most vulnerable. The broader implications of this conflict, and the political obstacles to resolving these cases, cast a long, dark shadow over the hope for repatriation. The children, innocent and defenseless, become unwitting pawns on a vast, unforgiving geopolitical chessboard. The very nature of the conflict, with its shifting front lines, its occupied territories, and its deep ideological divides, creates an environment ripe for such atrocities. When international law is disregarded, when humanitarian corridors are violated, and when the principles of human dignity are cast aside, the space for accountability shrinks dramatically. The accusations of forced deportations and illegal adoptions are not just isolated incidents, but symptoms of a systemic disregard for international norms, a deliberate strategy to erase a generation's identity and allegiance. This is a war not just for land, but for the very soul of a nation, fought through the manipulation of its most vulnerable citizens. This geopolitical struggle manifests in tangible ways for the searching families. Access to occupied territories, where many children are believed to have been taken, is severely restricted or entirely denied. Information sharing, which is crucial for reunification efforts, becomes a weaponized tool, withheld or manipulated for political gain. The very act of seeking one's child can be fraught with danger, risking accusations of espionage or disloyalty. Parents are caught in a cruel political game, their deepest personal agony exploited on the international stage, their pleas often falling on deaf ears. The international community, while condemning these actions and establishing legal frameworks, often finds its hands tied by the complexities of state sovereignty and the realities of power politics. Sanctions are imposed, resolutions are passed, but the immediate impact on the ground for a parent desperately searching for their child can feel agonizingly slow or even non-existent. The mechanisms for enforcement are often weak, and the political will to intervene directly can be hampered by fears of escalation. The fear of provoking a larger conflict often overshadows the urgent humanitarian imperative. This creates a profound moral dilemma for the world: how to uphold justice and protect the innocent when the very instruments of international law are challenged by a belligerent state. The missing children become symbols, not just of individual suffering, but of the profound failure of the international system to protect its most vulnerable members when confronted with unbridled aggression. Their absence is not just a humanitarian crisis, but a stark indictment of a world struggling to find its moral footing. The hope for their return, therefore, rests not only on the tireless efforts of humanitarian workers and legal experts, but also on a fundamental shift in the geopolitical landscape, a renewed commitment to the principles of humanity and accountability that seems so tragically absent in the shadow of this war. The children's fate is intertwined with the ebb and flow of diplomatic negotiations and military campaigns, a cruel irony for those who simply wish for their children to come home. Chapter 7. The Eradication of Identity, a Cultural Genocide. Beyond the physical act of disappearance lies a more insidious crime: the attempt to erase a child's identity. For the children forcibly removed from Ukraine and taken to the aggressor state, the journey often involves a systematic process of cultural assimilation, a deliberate effort to sever their ties to their homeland, their language, and their heritage. This is not merely a consequence of war, but a form of cultural genocide, targeting the very essence of who these children are. Upon arrival in the aggressor state, many children are placed in so-called re-education camps or institutions. Here, they are often subjected to intense propaganda, designed to instill a new national identity and allegiance. They are taught a different history, one that demonizes their homeland and glorifies their captors. Their native language is often discouraged or forbidden, replaced by the language of the aggressor. Their Ukrainian names may be changed, their birth dates altered, their personal histories rewritten. This process is designed to create a psychological break, to make them forget who they are and where they come from. The psychological impact of such an experience is devastating. Children, especially young ones, are highly impressionable. To be told that their parents were enemies, that their culture is inferior, that their past is a lie, can cause profound confusion and trauma. They may internalize these messages, leading to a loss of self-identity, a sense of alienation, and deep psychological distress. Even if they are eventually repatriated, the scars of this identity theft will remain, a constant struggle to reconcile their past with their imposed present. Consider the story of little Mykola, just 6 years old when he was taken from a children's home in a village near Donetsk. His parents had died before the war, and he was a bright, curious boy who loved to draw Ukrainian folk patterns. Months later, a humanitarian worker received a tip that Mykola was in a foster family hundreds of kilometers away, now called Nikolai, speaking only the aggressor's language and drawing different symbols. When shown a picture of his old home, he reportedly showed no recognition. This is the chilling reality of identity erasure, a child's very essence being systematically dismantled. The international community recognizes the gravity of these actions. The Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide includes acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. While the physical extermination of children is not always the primary goal, the systematic removal and forced assimilation of children from a national group can be interpreted as an attempt to destroy that group in part by severing its future generations from their heritage. This makes the forced transfer and re-education of children a deeply troubling aspect of the conflict, raising profound questions about international law and moral responsibility. The struggle to reclaim these children's identities is as crucial as the struggle for their physical return. It involves not only legal battles but also cultural and psychological support. Efforts to reconnect them with their language, their history, and their traditions are vital for their healing and for the preservation of their heritage. The memory of who they truly are and where they belong must be kept alive, a defiant spark against the darkness of forced assimilation. This fight for identity is a fight for the very soul of a generation, a battle against the erasure of a people's future. Chapter 8. Echoes of Resilience, the Unbreakable Spirit. Amidst the profound despair and the chilling acts of cruelty, the human spirit continues to demonstrate an astonishing capacity for resilience. The stories of those affected by the missing children crisis are not solely tales of loss, but also powerful testaments to courage, to hope, and to the unwavering refusal to surrender to the darkness. These echoes of resilience reverberate across Ukraine, inspiring action and reminding the world of the enduring strength of the human heart. We see this resilience in the tireless work of volunteers, ordinary citizens who have transformed their lives into a mission of mercy. They brave dangerous territories, establish underground networks, and dedicate countless hours to tracking leads, verifying information, and facilitating the return of children. These individuals, often working without official recognition or adequate resources, are the unsung heroes of this crisis. Their motivation is simple: a profound empathy for suffering and an unshakable belief in the right of every child to be with their family. They are the hands that reach out in the darkness, the voices that whisper hope when all seems lost. The resilience is also evident in the communities themselves. Despite being fractured by war and displacement, many communities have rallied together to support searching families. They share resources, offer emotional solace, and create local initiatives to keep the memory of missing children alive. Walls adorned with photographs of the lost, candlelight vigils held in shattered squares. These acts of collective remembrance are not just expressions of grief, but powerful statements of defiance. They declare that these children will not be forgotten, that their absence will not be normalized, and that the community will continue to fight for their return. And then there are the children themselves, those who have been returned, and those who, against all odds, have managed to escape. Their stories are often harrowing, filled with trauma and fear. Yet, many demonstrate an incredible capacity for healing and adaptation. With proper psychological support and the loving embrace of their families, they begin the long journey of recovery. Their resilience is a testament to the inherent strength of childhood, a powerful reminder that even after experiencing the unimaginable, the spirit can mend and hope can be rekindled. Their laughter, once silenced, slowly begins to return, a fragile but precious sound. Consider the story of young Sasha, a boy of 8 who was taken from a temporary camp and placed in a distant institution. After months of being told his parents were gone, he overheard a conversation about a humanitarian corridor. With a courage far beyond his years, he managed to slip away, walking for days, guided by an instinctual pull toward home. He eventually found his way to a border crossing, where he was recognized by a volunteer who had seen his picture. His reunion with his mother, a moment of raw, overwhelming emotion, was a powerful symbol of hope. Sasha's journey, a testament to his own inner strength, became a beacon for other searching families, a proof that miracles, however rare, can still happen. This collective resilience, this unwavering commitment to humanity, is the ultimate counterpoint to the cruelty of war. It is a reminder that even when institutions fail and political will falters, the human heart, fueled by love and compassion, can rise to meet the challenge. The echoes of resilience are a promise, a quiet but powerful assurance that the fight for these children and for the values they represent will continue until every possible avenue has been explored and every child has a chance to come home. Chapter 9. Existential Reflections, the Soul of Humanity. In the crucible of war, humanity is stripped bare, revealing both its most monstrous capacities and its most profound resilience. The disappearance of children in Ukraine forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about the nature of innocence, and the enduring power of memory and love in the face of unimaginable cruelty. These are not merely statistics or geopolitical maneuvers. They are existential dilemmas etched into the very fabric of our being, questions that pierce the very soul. What does it mean to be human when such atrocities are committed? When children, the very embodiment of future and hope, are snatched away, their laughter silenced, their dreams extinguished. It speaks to a chilling capacity for dehumanization, a willingness to see others not as individuals with inherent worth, but as objects to be manipulated, exploited, or simply erased. This is the dark heart of conflict, where empathy withers and the moral compass spins wildly, lost in a storm of hatred and ambition. The act of taking a child, of severing that most sacred bond between parent and offspring, is an act of profound violence against the very essence of humanity itself. It is a declaration that some lives are expendable, some futures are irrelevant, a chilling echo of history's darkest chapters. Yet, amidst this bleak landscape, another truth emerges, the astonishing, defiant resilience of the human spirit. We see it in the unwavering determination of parents like Serhiy and Oksana, whose love for Sophia transcends the physical absence, becoming a spiritual anchor in a tempestuous world. Their bond, forged in shared joy and now tempered by shared agony, is a testament to love's enduring power. It is a love that refuses to surrender to despair, a love that fuels every desperate search, every whispered prayer, every plea to a world that often seems deaf to their cries. This is not a fictional romance, but the raw, visceral truth of human connection, a bond so strong it defies the very forces attempting to tear it apart. Their quiet strength, their shared purpose, becomes a beacon not just for themselves, but for others who witness their unwavering commitment. Their shared glances, their silent understanding, speak volumes of a love that has deepened, rather than diminished, in the face of unspeakable loss. The nature of innocence lost is perhaps the most poignant reflection. A child's innocence is a fragile, precious thing, a shield against the harsh realities of the world. War shatters this shield, exposing them to horrors no young mind should ever comprehend. For the missing children, their innocence is not merely lost. It is stolen, replaced by an unknown fate, a future denied. Even for those who are eventually found, the scars of their experience will forever mark them, a permanent reminder of a childhood brutally interrupted. The world owes these children not just their return, but a future where their lost innocence can, in some small measure, be reclaimed, nurtured, and healed. The echoes of their stolen laughter will forever haunt the conscience of humanity. Memory, too, plays a crucial role in this existential drama. For the parents, memory is both a blessing and a curse. It is the vivid recollection of a child's smile, a particular laugh, a favorite toy that keeps hope alive. But it is also the constant torment of what was and what might never be again. For the world, memory is a moral imperative. To remember these children, to speak their names, to refuse to let their stories fade into the annals of forgotten conflicts, is an act of defiance against the forces that seek to erase them. It is a commitment to justice, a promise that their suffering will not be in vain. To forget them would be to allow the darkness to win. Ultimately, the secrets of the missing children of Ukraine force us to look inward, to question our own capacity for both cruelty and compassion. It is a mirror reflecting the best and worst of humanity. The enduring power of love, the relentless pursuit of truth, and the unwavering commitment to justice are the only antidotes to the poison of war. Their stories are a plea, a demand, for a world where no child is ever forgotten, and where the sanctity of human life is held above all else. The search continues, not just for the children, but for the very soul of humanity itself, a quest for redemption in a world scarred by conflict. Chapter 10: The Unfolding Future, a Promise of Return. As the echoes of war continue to reverberate across the Ukrainian landscape and the search for missing children persists, we are left with a profound question. What future awaits those who have been lost and those who tirelessly seek them? The journey ahead is fraught with challenges, but it is also illuminated by the unwavering light of hope and the enduring power of human connection. The path to healing and reunification is long, but it is a path that humanity must walk together. For the children who remain missing, their fate hangs in a precarious balance. Some may still be held in occupied territories, their identities suppressed, their memories of home fading under the weight of forced re-education. Others may have been illegally adopted, their new lives built on a foundation of stolen pasts, unaware of the families who yearn for their return. The path to their repatriation is long and arduous, requiring sustained international pressure, meticulous legal work, and the tireless efforts of humanitarian organizations. Each case is a complex puzzle, demanding patience, diplomacy, and an unyielding commitment to justice. The goal is not merely to return them to a geographical location, but to restore their heritage, their language, their very sense of self, to mend the fractured pieces of their identity. For the families, like Serhiy and Oksana, the future is an uncertain horizon. Their love for Sofia, once a gentle current, has become a powerful, relentless tide, carrying them forward through unimaginable grief. They have learned to live in a state of perpetual anticipation, every phone call a potential breakthrough, every knock at the door a moment of suspended breath. Their shared journey, their quiet strength in holding each other through the darkest nights, has become a testament to a love that transcends tragedy. It is a love that does not demand grand gestures, but manifests in the quiet comfort of a shared glance, a hand held tight, a silent promise to never give up. This profound bond, this realistic and deeply human connection, is what sustains them, allowing them to face each new day with a fragile but persistent hope. Their story is a powerful reminder that even when the world is fractured, the human heart finds ways to mend, to endure, and to love, a defiant flame against the encroaching darkness. The psychological scars of this ordeal will undoubtedly linger for the children, for their families, and for the nation as a whole. Healing will require more than just physical return. It will demand comprehensive psychological support, community rebuilding, and a renewed sense of security and belonging. It is a long-term commitment, one that extends far beyond the cessation of hostilities. The world must not turn away once the headlines fade, for the true work of recovery will only just begin. The wounds of war are deep, and their mending requires sustained compassion and unwavering support. The legacy of the missing children of Ukraine will forever be etched into the annals of this conflict. Their stories serve as a stark warning, a powerful indictment of the devastating human cost of war. They challenge us to reflect on our collective responsibility to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again, and to hold accountable those who perpetrate them. It is a call to strengthen international laws, to bolster humanitarian efforts, and to ensure that the protection of children remains paramount in all conflicts. Their absence is a silent scream, a demand for a more just and humane world. Ultimately, the search for these children is a search for humanity itself. It is a quest to reaffirm the value of every single life, to uphold the principles of justice and compassion, and to remind ourselves that even in the darkest hours, the light of hope, fueled by love and resilience, can never be entirely extinguished. The names of these children, their faces, their stories, must never be forgotten. They are a testament to the enduring spirit of Ukraine and a poignant reminder to the world that the future of our shared humanity rests on our ability to protect the most innocent among us. The journey continues, a testament to love, to hope, and to the unwavering belief that every child deserves to come home, to a world that remembers and that cares. The final chapter is yet to be written, but it is a chapter that must end with their return.